How many people in the audience would like an application or a tool where they could reliably send a query out into the world and get an answer more or less within 2 or 3 minutes, and it would make a recommendation? I mean, there are these things that do exist, but that they could get a relatively solid recommendation or be made aware of an offer relevant to their query. How many people would want that and would use that on a regular basis? So a kind of word-of-mouth tool that was effective and reliable. That's another version of this concept.
For certain types of query, yeah.
I mean,
No?
I actually think that we can use it for all sorts of queries. Personally, that I think it can cover any needs. It depends on breadth and depth of content. I think today we don't have it, but if what we think is true, a lot of people think that status updates will become a default feature, and we'll talk about that later in another presentation I'm doing. But if it becomes a default thing and it gets syndicated and you have access to all these status updates from a variety of websites, including yours, then suddenly it becomes very interesting and you can find answers to any queries.
There's a question in the back.
Yeah, I understand. There's so much information out there. It's about really trying to nail your query, I suppose. What about validated? So you've got your friend network, so you believe what they say. But what about verified? You know, some system of verification that it's an independent verification that you know that this is kosher. You know.
Well, I think the answer is your friend network. I think hopefully you trust your friends more than an independent verification system.
But there are people that are trying to curate content in a way. There's things like Glam Media are doing with Tinker, for example, where they have people filtering tweets and then they package them in themes and then they can guarantee the quality and the content there and they can sell advertising next to it. There are, okay, if you take Mahalo as another example, which is, again, it's not real-time content streaming or anything like that, but you have, again, the intervention of humans pulling content together and making it easier for you to understand and consume. I think there is value there. The problem, of course, is how you scale those things. And personally, I don't really think you can, if you want to provide a universal global search platform, you can go down that route, but you can definitely do it at a much more local, restricted level. And you can use your friends or your friends' friends and those other kind of relationships within your graph to filter information for you. But I think in that case, you're going to have to be prepared to do some of the validating yourself.
To Kate's point about being overwhelmed by information, doesn't this just add another layer, notwithstanding Simon's point about the relevance of the news results, the Twitter news feed? Doesn't this add another layer of complexity to the whole equation that risks overwhelming people? I mean, Bernie talked about that in a different context. Don't we get more complexity, more noise in the system? To your point about filtering, or Andrew's point.
Yeah, but I think we get better at dealing with it. Our brains get better at dealing with it because there are things that we deal with today that 50 years ago people couldn't deal with. We've just become accustomed to dealing with them, and the technology that we use to deal with it and filter it gets better. So I think that's an academic problem that goes away. I don't think that is a long-standing problem.
Andrew, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No. Andrew's sitting back and contemplates in a very pensive mode there. So come forward and say something.
I think if you, in the example of a Twitter feed, for example, or whatever, we're empowering users to sort of pick and choose who they follow and the information that they take back. What we like to do on Qype, on a specific search result, is try and give you as much information which is relevant to your connections, your friends, or people that have a similar taste match to you. So if you've expressed an interest in pubs in Soho and there are other members of the community who we think are similar to you, then we're going to try and think of automated ways of bringing back more relevant results. To Sokratis' point, I don't think human intervention to bring back more qualified results is the most scalable way of doing it. I think we've got to find automated solutions to bring back that relevance.
Go.
So that brings an opportunity for advertisers and a challenge for publishers, right? Because we want to stay independent enough so that the recommendations we make are trusted, but advertisers aren't going to want to buy into those recommendations because that's being able to promote their products to people who might just be a perfect match for that product. So there's an opportunity and a challenge, right? Surely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm blanking on his name. CloudMade. Jim?
Jane.
Was it Jim? Yeah.
Jim Brown.
From CloudMade,
Yeah.
made this point about verticals where you have you have an alignment between advertising, user interest, and then the content. And do you see that situation being an expression of bringing advertising together with the activity stream or what have you? I mean, you see on Twitter companies disseminating offers, discounts of one sort or another, and people lining up for those because they want to be there when that offer comes out. Dell Computer's one, and there are many other examples of those kinds of things. Do you see this being, in terms of advertising, more applicable in a vertical context, as Jim was discussing, or do you see this more broadly than that, if that was intelligible to you? What's the best, how does the monetization best align with user interests? How do you bring all these things together in a stream of content in real time?
Well, it may not even be the advertisers paying. It might be the business model might turn, etc. Is it Judy's book in the States? Is it still going? Where you paid to be the consumer of the services. You paid to be in the club that got the access to these businesses that were accredited to the
Angie's List. That's Angie's List.
Angie's List. That's right. So is that still going?
It's a membership model.
So now you've got the consumers paying, or if you. It's the other example of the company that's the job market that was in TechCrunch 50 the other week that has
right.
candidates paying to apply for jobs on the basis that then you only get the good candidates and you as a recruiter don't get snowed under and they're going to be selective. So maybe the business model might turn on its head because the publisher has got to, if you're allowing advertisers to buy themselves in too heavily, then you're risking your independence and the credibility of your service, and then your users no longer use you because they don't get variety, they just get the same old stuff, they get the people that will pay the most. It's a big challenge, right?
Well, one of the comments that came up during the break was the notion of local advertisers, small businesses, being unable to make sense of this kind of complicated world of social media, et cetera. And is there any opportunity for them to play, or is it really all about the brands and the sophisticated agencies and their ability to tap into these social graphs?
Well, I think certainly one of the ways that this new real-time world will be monetized from the get-go is through reputation management tools. I mean, that's already Marchex is out of the gate with their product, and I can guarantee this is going to be a commodity within 12 to 18 months in the local space. So
this would be a subscription product that would help the business understand who's writing about it.
That's right.
And do something about it.
That's right. And this becomes the stepping stone to real-time conversation, where at the beginning, merchants will be listening to what's being said about them because they don't know how to interact in Twitter or in Facebook. But eventually, they'll get comfortable, and they'll start talking to people. And then eventually you want to provide them those kind of tools for specials and special offers and things like that, so that it's all done through a centralized place.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead. If we have other questions, you can. Yeah.
Just again, comment.
Are you understanding now better?